listening live to Rightside Radio with Phil Williams. It's hard to go wrong when you're on the right side. Rightside Radio. Solid, conservative, and just plain right.
Alabama and Tennessee syndicated news talk leader, Rightside Radio. Phil Williams here live in the Rightside studios. Man, we got the local, the state, the national, covering down on all the issues. And oh yeah, like the dude just said, solid, conservative, and just plain right. Well, welcome to Taco Tuesday. Taco Tuesday, yes, yes it is. Hit me some Taco Tuesday.
But more importantly, y'all know what today is, right? It's Taco Tuesday!
That's right. Speedy Gonzalez telling us all the way. Hey, welcome to Taco Tuesday and pushing buttons on the board. JP, how you doing, man?
I'm good today. How about you?
It's beautiful outside.
It's gorgeous.
Distractingly beautiful outside.
I think apparently we're supposed to get really bad storms on Thursday, though, so enjoy while it lasts this week.
Okay, well, there's that. Thanks for raining on our parade, no pun intended. All right, hey, we got a great show laid on for you. Coming up at 3 o'clock live here in the studio, State Representative Mac Butler. He's got a bill that fits in perfectly with what we're talking about. We're going to be talking about things that are going on in terms of radical schools, and he's got a bill to deal with it in the state legislature as we speak. So yeah, State Representative Matt Butler in the studio on at 3 o'clock, and then I still got a triple dipper, so hit it, man.
The Triple Dipper. 3 stories you've got to know.
That's right, the Triple Dipper, 3 stories, 3 themes, if you will, that you got to know as we run today's show. Like I said a moment ago, in conjunction with our conversation with State Representative Mac Butler, we're going to talk about radical schools. Radical schools, because yes, there are some out there, radical schools. Well, President Trump issued an executive order. State legislatures are passing laws. Are we seeing the demise of radical schools? I don't know. We'll talk about it. Number 1 on the Triple Dipper. Number 2, you know the deal. Here's the thing. I'm researching the show. I'm working my way through all the news headlines, trying to gather up stuff to help empower and enlighten and encourage you and entertain you on the things about being a conservative in today's world. And sometimes I'm like, look at all the wokeness. How much wokeness can there be? My gosh, at the wokeness. And yes, that means it will be time for another round of adventures in woke world. So that's coming up, number 2 on the Triple Dipper. And then number 3, a lot of talk out of D.C. right now about is there going to be a government shutdown? Could be a vote as early as today. They're going to have to vote on it soon, what they're going to do, the continuing resolution versus letting it all shut down. What does that mean? What are they doing? How's the continuing resolution work? What is a CR? We're going to talk about all of that and the implications of it as number 3 on the Triple Dipper. All right, well, let me jump on into today's Rightside Way opening monologue, and I will remind you guys that every single day, the Rightside Way monologue is brought to you by attorney Stan McDonald. Stan McDonald at the law firm of Wilmer & Lee, 30-year veteran in the practice of law, daily sponsor of the Rightside Way, and I'll tell you more about Stan here in just a minute. All right, let me just say, I've always been fascinated by dystopian movies, TV shows, books, all of it. I can't explain it. It's always fascinated me to see the portrayals of what life as we know it on Earth could look like after some cataclysmic event. I mean, what would people do? How would they live? Would they remember where they came from? Would they know how to accomplish the things that we take for granted today? Dystopian reality. I mean, it's amazing. I remember as a kid being sucked in when the closing scenes of Planet of the Apes revealed that the epic view of the fallen Statue of Liberty and Charlton Heston realizing he'd been walking on a future version of Earth the whole time. In high school, I was fascinated by the portrayal of Mel Gibson playing Max Rokitansky in Mad Max and the Road Warrior movies. I mean, I can repeat the lines from Road Warrior like nearly verbatim as he traversed the Australian wasteland in the post-apocalyptic world. And by the way, I was also into muscle cars, so that kind of hit 2 of my interests in a big way. In more recent years, one of my favorite actors, Denzel Washington, he made a modern classic called The Book of Eli. One of those flicks that I stop on every time I catch a glimpse of it on the channel guide. Eli, the main character, is working his way west across the former devastated United States in a post-nuclear environment with the last known Bible in the world. His mission, because God had given it to him, was to take that Bible to a place where it'd be safe and cherished, but he had to cross the wastelands to do it. dystopia. By the way, if you haven't seen the Book of Eli, I will not question your faith or your manhood, but let's just say you're missing out. We'll just name all the shows you can think of in that genre, right? The Walking Dead, Red Dawn, the list goes on and on. But this same fascination also extended to a constant interest in archaeology. Like the study of ancient civilizations, it's vital to understanding much of what we see around us today. But the underlying questions that I always ask myself are, what happened to them? How did that civilization just disappear? Why don't we know? I mean, how is it that great civilizations just disappeared from the annals of history? I mean, we can know some aspects of their plight. We can find relics, we can find archaeological digs, but not all. How is it that massive structures were built and abandoned in Central and South America without the modern world having a good record or a deeper understanding of them? How did the ancient Egyptians set about building the pyramids without leaving behind a full record that would tell future generations the how and the why and the when? And while we're at it, who in God's name built Stonehenge? And for what purpose? And how did they get the rocks over there the whole time? I mean, it's just, you look at it and think, why don't we know? Well, the modern world is filled up with mysteries of the ancient world, things that confound us because the former gave way to the latter without leaving behind an express understanding of their goals and their language and their customs. I mean, we can piece them together best we can, create archaeological evidentiary patterns that give rise to some social theories, but in the end, they're just theories. We may never know why some civilizations that dominated certain corners of this earth rose and fell. All we can do is speculate as to what it took to put an end to an entire nation of people. Well, my prayer too, though, is that we never have that said about us. I don't ever want it to be said by some future historian or archaeologist that indications are that during the mid-21st century, the great decline of America began. I would not want that. I would not want them to look back with confusion and try to piece together what tore apart the nation that historians understand was once called the United States. What a tragedy it would be if one day people dug a hole to find our buildings, or used radar or LiDAR or other technologies to rediscover our roads. I would dare say that modern civilization is more advanced, more expansive, and certainly more recorded for future posterity than any generation that came before us. But, think about it. They used to say that about the Roman Empire. All of that to say, I'm watching with a sharp eye as I see the very institutions that have made this nation great being constantly assaulted by progressive agendas that just seem intent on tearing holes in the very fabric of who we are as a society. A while back, you may recall I gave you some opinions on what experts say led to the fall of Rome. And it wasn't not what you think. It was not one cataclysmic event. There was no singular volcanic eruption, no asteroid. No, it was a slow erosion of policies of their governance that left us with nothing more than an archaeological view of ancient Roman society and leaves us wondering today about certain aspects of that civilization, despite the fact that ancient Rome is really not that ancient. It's not so remote in time that we shouldn't know. Truthfully, what we do know about their demise is actually eye-popping. You see, the factors that modern scholars believe led to the downfall of Rome were things like mass migration without border control, deep schisms in their political infrastructure that caused a breakdown into partisan infighting, a weakening of their military and law enforcement by a society that became dominated by social elitists who believed they were impervious to danger. By the way, which also led to a loss of power on the world stage as their word and their presence and their ability to project influence began to wane in the eyes of the rest of the world. Over time, political laziness gave rise to the splitting of Rome into various geographic entities because it was just easier. It was also the beginning of a loss of their national identity, which began to manifest itself in a loss of national pride. Well, by the time the Roman leadership realized it, the great mystery of Rome was nothing more than a shadow of its former self. The empire collapsed. It was relegated to the ash heap of history. And I got to ask you, do those same trends that I just outlined for the fall of Rome, do they sound familiar? Because they should. They're exactly what we've been seeing progressives trying desperately to put in place all around us in these days. And that's not conspiracy, by the way. That's not hyperbole. That's reality. At every turn right now, you are seeing desperate attempts to rewrite who we are as a people. There's a growing pantheon of liberal elites who are funding and planning and implementing an attempt to say that America is systemically racist, that American exceptionalism on the world stage is not real nor acceptable, that the mores, traditions, and culture of this nation needs to be broken down and rewritten. Speaking of borders, we haven't had one on the southern edge of our land mass for several years, and the political laziness that caused Rome to be split Well, that can be evidenced by the constant attempts to promote division in our society with things like, race and vaccination status and willingness to accept absurd social pronouncements like pregnant men and what pronouns a minor child can use in school. But listen, here's the thing. I believe that we have been given a rare opportunity, a chance to actually learn from history so we don't have to repeat it. You see, civilizations somehow come and go, rarely because they were just vanquished in one major battle. It's usually an erosion. And we have now been given the chance here in 2025 to reverse that trend, to push back and restore and to catch a fresh breath. That's why what's happening with things like Doge is so important, because it not only exposes what the left has been doing, but it inflames our passions and moves people to demand that it be fixed. That's why the last election gave us such a mandate, because people rose up and said, not on my watch, not while I can breathe. Look, we truly have been given a gift, a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to preserve and protect rather than to degrade and destroy. And it's going to take work. The left did all it could to dismantle us as a culture, as a people, and really as a nation. They pushed open borders, equity over equality, spending as a solution to all things. The left believed that the military was a plaything for progressive policies and that the economy was built by government, not by the private sector. But again, we have been given this chance now to restore faith and values and patriotism and really common sense. And I believe I speak for the majority of this audience. We are not going to fade away. Our goal is to pursue the next greatest generation, the next golden age, the next Reagan economy. We're going to get the woke out of our schools and out of our churches. We're going to once and for all secure our borders. We're going to be energy independent, and we're going to be the biggest dog on the block again. And I do not want future generations to wonder, what happened to that place they used to call the United States? Not on our watch. Not on our watch. It only happens if we let it happen. It only happens if we stand idly by. We cannot allow the dystopian fantasies of Hollywood to become our own dystopian reality. So let's fix this. And that's a wrap for the Right Side Way. Yeah, I'm serious. I mean, I've always been fascinated by it. But the cautionary tale, when you take it in its totality, is, hey, let's don't be that. In fact, I would say that we were tracking towards being that, if you look at history. But I do believe we've been given a second chance, an opportunity for a fresh breath. And I say, let's grab it and get her done. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We'll be right back. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Solid conservative, just plain right. Making common sense like a superpower. A bunch of y'all are texting in already. Text lines are indeed open. 833-687-4448. That's 833-68-RIGHT. Text it or call it. Same number for both. Let me tell you real quickly, too, is Attorney Stan McDonald. So he is the daily sponsor of the monologue I just did, the Right Side Way monologue. One day I'm going to put all those in a book. I've got them ready. But anyway, the bottom line is this. Stan McDonald is our daily sponsor. He's with the law firm of Wilmer and Lee. He's a 30-year veteran of the practice of law in North Alabama. And listen, I know him personally. I know him pretty well. And I'll tell you right now, Stan McDonald has been in the mix, in the fray, on all the conservative policies and politics that right-side ruffians care about because he's one of us. So listen, Attorney Stan McDonald, yes, he has represented his clients in literally thousands of real estate transactions over the years. He can stand up for you in local, state, and federal courts. And I'll be honest with you, I always say it, if Stan McDonald's on your side, you'll have no greater friend, and your opposition would have no greater foe. So here's the bottom line. I'm going to tell you how to get hold of him. If you need an attorney in North Alabama, Stan McDonald, the law firm is Wilmer and Lee. And yes, he's an America First family man. His phone number is 256-479-3020. That's 256-479-3020. And tell him you heard about it on Right Side, please. And no representation made. The quality of legal service before is greater than the quality of legal service performed by other lawyers. I actually heard the other on that one. Did you hear that?
Barely.
Oh, come on. Okay.
You snuck it in there.
Okay. Text line. Let's see what we got over here. Man, a bunch of y'all going. Let's see. Shane from Lacey Springs says, our new White House press secretary is an absolute beast. She is. I'm not sure to what she did to earn that moniker for the day, but I have seen it on a regular basis. Yes, she is wearing it out.
She snarkingly congratulated, was it the Washington Post, I believe, for revising their the way they go about things. I can't remember what the exact revision is, but she basically poked fun at the Washington Post today, and it's been making the rounds.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I saw that suddenly the New York Times decided to do fact checking again.
Or maybe it was the New York Times. It was somebody like that. I can't remember. I scrolled right past it.
Maybe that was it.
I think that's she poked fun at one of the big mainstream outlets today.
Lewis from Trinity says The Postman. Oh, the movie The Postman. I like The Postman. You know what? And I don't think it got a lot of notoriety, but I always liked it. I thought it was pretty cool. You ever seen that movie, The Postman, with Kevin Costner?
Nope, never seen it.
Little known fact, there was a classic rock guy that made a brief appearance in the movie. Tom Petty.
Oh, really?
Tom Petty was in the movie. In fact, at one point, Kevin Costner looked at him and goes, I know you. You were famous. And he goes, I was once.
That's funny.
Yeah, Tom Petty leading a dystopian survival village. Jeremy from Madison says, and on the pedestal these words appear. My name is Osmandidus, King of Kings. Look on my works, ye mighty in despair. Nothing beside remains. Round the decay of that colossal wreck. Boundless and bare, the lone and level sand stretch far away. I don't know what that's referring to, but thank you, Jeremy. Is there a reason why you sent me that? What am I missing here? Allie Mathen says, the other thing that caused the respective cultural downfalls that they all had in common was that repentance was not a part of their body politic, either horizontally or vertically. Let us therefore grow calluses on our knees. Allie, excellent text. Thank you. Scott from Ardmore says, Phil, you're darn skippy. We got our chance and we must not fail. Our continued ability to breathe free air and to have our own opinions and worship as we see fit is at stake here. I'm with you, sir. Scott from Ardmore. Thank you, Scott. Appreciate that, man.
By the way, we got a comment on the Rumble stream.
Yeah.
I guess this is referring to the Postman. Said the book was better, but the movie was good.
The book?
I didn't know.
I don't think I know there was a book.
Mm-mm.
Okay. Now I'm curious. I don't read a lot of science fiction and stuff like that, but I would read that one.
Yep, there's the Postman novel by David Brin.
I tell you what was better than any dystopian movie that made. Did you ever see the movie World War Z with Brad Pitt?
Mm-hmm.
Fast zombies are bad.
Yeah.
Fast zombies are the worst. Fast zombies should be outlawed.
Any zombie is bad, but especially fast zombies.
But the book, you ought to read the book. The book was amazing. I mean, the book was, and the movie and the book were like night and day. They took the title and that was about it. The book was actually, you'd read it going, I could see that happening. It was something else. All right, we got more text. We got more stuff. We got First Dipper, Phil Williams, Right Side Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We will be right back. Hey, all you right side ruffians out there, you are listening to Right Side Radio, solid conservative, just plain right. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Solid, conservative, and just plain right. Covering down on some major ground across the southeast U.S. of A. Y'all, I am talking about this show. Goes from like Huntsville back on over to Chattanooga, from Tuscaloosa back on over to Gadsden, all the way down to that prettiest little town on the plains called Auburn, stretching across the border to Fort Benning. Yes, I called it Fort Benning. And oh, by the way, big old patches of northwest Georgia and Mississippi thrown in just for good measure. Bunch of text messages. I'll keep going back to those here momentarily. I will tell you we have a couple of pieces of breaking news. The first one you might want to know is apparently the U.S. Department of Education, which we talked about at length yesterday, whether or not the Department of Education is going to die, the DOE is going to DIE. Well, the Department of Education employees were just told that they have until 6 p.m. tonight to vacate their offices. I don't know the details of it. I just know what the ticker was saying on Fox as they did a news alert up here on one of the screens in the studio. So, holy crap, that's interesting. We'll wait and see how that plays out. There's going to be some freak out going on in D.C., I imagine. And then the other one is this big story coming out of Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia is the nation host for the peace negotiations, or the discussions at the very least, with Ukraine and Russia. And it has now been announced by Secretary Rubio that Ukraine has accepted a ceasefire deal, and they are now going to the Russians to see if they'll take it. So, story here on Fox, top of the ticket right now, says Ukraine on Tuesday accepted a deal put forward by the Trump administration during a meeting in Saudi Arabia, a significant step in securing a ceasefire agreement, bringing an end to the war with Russia. What we do know, without knowing all the details, like what are the conditions under which it may just be one of those conditional ceasefires that gives them the ability to have a tactical pause and then go back to fighting if they can't work out the rest of the details. I suspect that's true. But what we are hearing, though, is that the U.S. will resume providing intelligence and military aid in return for them agreeing to the ceasefire. So, Zelensky said he wanted security agreements. I'm sure that was part of it. We said we wanted a ceasefire, and the checkbook was being closed otherwise. So right now, what we do know is the Ukrainians have apparently accepted. In fact, I see it now. There's a post by Volodymyr Zelensky saying, I received a report from our delegation on their meeting with the American team in Saudi Arabia. It was good and constructive. Our teams were able to discuss many details. And then he goes on to say, if I can get it to open, it's a long one. I won't read the whole thing. Bottom line is, it appears they are accepting. He said, Ukraine is ready to accept this proposal. We see it as a positive step. Now it's up to the United States to convince Russia. Okay, that's a positive development. We'll see how it develops. Bless him, Jesus. All right, let me jump into this first dipper. Radical schools. So let me just point out for you. In fact, let me jump to that article first. Let me just go down to my stack. How about this one? Fox News, August of 2022. Christopher Rufo, many of y'all heard his name. Christopher Rufo was making a report that, in his words, radical gender theory had made sudden inroads into America's schools. He says many parents have watched in confusion as their children repeated back slogans like non-binary and pansexual and genderqueer. And they want to know, where did this come from? And right now they're saying, Christopher Rufo's studies indicate that more than 4,000 schools nationwide have some type of, gender theory education or allowances within the school itself. All right. His point here is, who is behind this? And you can almost say who, and you know that in the conceptual sense, it's going to be the activists on the LGBTQ transgender agenda. But who are they? Like, what organization? Are they organized, or is this like a social cultural rise? No, it's an organization. It's called the GSA Network. And he labels it. The GSA Network, once called the Gay Straight Alliance, is now more often known as the, what do they call it now? GSA Network, Gender and Sexuality Alliance. Awesome. Once called the Gay Straight Alliance, the group rebranded itself in 2016 and reflects a new focus on, quote, the limits of a binary gender system, whatever that means. and they operate in elementary, middle, and high schools nationwide. You heard me, elementary, middle, and high schools. The Gender and Sexuality Alliances. They're a multi-million-dollar organization. They got a professional nonprofit. They got staff. And listen to their ideology. You ready for this? Brace yourselves. See if you can decipher this for me. White European men created an oppressive system based on capitalism, white supremacy, and heteronormativity. That is, the promotion of heterosexuality and the male-female binary and the bourgeois family norms. Anybody, by the way, who says bourgeois deserves to be slapped just right there on the spot. In order to fight back, racial and sexual minorities must unite under the banner of intersexuality and dismantle the interlocking systems of oppression. Oh, God, could they fit more woke in one phrase? And yes, I feel that way about the bourgeois word. I hate that
I don't even know what bourgeois means.
I'm glad.
I've never heard of that till just
You're in
now.
a much better place. Go ahead and look it up. It's Bourgeois, bourgeois. And it's going to be something like elitist or upper class, or it's such an overused word in the left. Do you see it? What's it say?
So I think it's the right one. It just says the middle class, typically referring with reference to its perceived materialistic values or conventional attitudes.
Yeah, it's more than that. Bourgeois. Anyway, I hate that word. The specific practices of the GSA network, says this article, and its affiliates are cult-like in their programming techniques. They have toolkits that instruct children how to do the quote-unquote self-work of analyzing, quote, how their actions or lack of actions or privileges contribute to ongoing marginalizations. Anyway, what I'm saying is that's the largest organization out there that's doing things in schools, creating what I would call radical schools. Now, in Alabama, we've been fighting back on this. In Alabama, we passed what's called the Divisive Concepts Bill last year, I believe. And it's in court. Go figure. But I will say this, like I pulled this from the Tuscaloosa News. Dateline yesterday, that the University of Alabama's attorneys are defending their use of the anti-DEI law against an ACLU-based, NAACP-based attack. What they're basically saying is, we have every right to follow the law, and we're doing the right things. And I'm not talking about they're saying it incorrectly. They're saying it correctly because they're fighting against a group of NAACP officials, groups of professors in the District Court of Northern Alabama, and the attorneys for the school are fighting the issue. So I'm glad. So there is pushback. There are those who are trying to say, that's the law now, praise God, and we're following it. And then there's the left still fighting it. Well, how about this? President Trump weighed in from the national level. And you may recall that in January 29th, when was he sworn in? Was it January 20th? I think it was.
Yep.
So in his first 9 days of office, one of the first things he did was sign an executive order that was designed to de-radicalize schools nationwide. And I've got a copy of the presser released by the White House under his name, January 29th of this year. The title of it is Ending Radical Indoctrination in K-12 Schooling. Can you imagine that we have to do this, though? There was a time when there were sort of some left and right limits, like, people had a lifestyle. They kept their lifestyle to themselves, leave the kids alone. Kids want to grow into that lifestyle later. That's for later. Not now. All of those borders and mores and left and right limits and parameters, those are gone. They are after your kindergartner. They will do everything they can to put it in front of them. Why do I know that? Because I'm looking at some of the evidence of it. President Trump's executive order clearly says parents have witnessed schools indoctrinate their children in radical anti-American ideologies while deliberately blocking parental oversight, in which students are forced to accept these ideologies without question or critical examination. This not only erodes critical thinking, said the president, but also sows division, confusion, and distrust, which undermines the very foundations of personal identity and family unity. So what does his executive order do? It restores parental authority, first of all. He flat out says it. It restores parental authority. And then it ends what he calls an indoctrination strategy. He says within 90 days, he is ordering the SecDef, the Secretary of Education, the Secretary of Health and Human Services, in consultation with the Attorney General, to provide an ending indoctrination strategy to the president so that he can have it implemented. That's one. And he goes through all the things, which include some of what I just said a moment ago. Getting rid of all the gender ideology and the transgenderism and the helping your kids transition without mommy and daddy knowing, all of it. Stop it. Get the gay pride flags off your walls. Go back to teaching reading, writing, and arithmetic. But he also added this. He's reestablishing what's known as the President's Advisory 1776 Commission to promote patriotic education. He's going to teach the history, the patriotic history of our nation. When I was a kid, you knew that George Washington had crossed the Delaware. When I was a kid, you knew about, the patriots and the founding fathers and what Paul Revere did. You knew these things, and they're not always taught anymore. Which is, you knew what the Boston Tea Party was. You knew why it was so important that the Constitution be written the way it was, or why the founding fathers established us as a republic. Not anymore. So President Trump's executive order says we're going down that road. We are going down that road. We are doing that thing. Now, there are people out there celebrating, y'all. Well, I'm one of them. But I mean like people who have been scarred by this. Got a piece from Fox. 2 days after the president signed his executive order, they interviewed a Christian former teacher. By the way, she had been tenured. She was an otherwise great teacher, but she refused to comply with the district's gender policies and to use the preferred pronouns of children in her class. And she said she wouldn't do it. And she told them she wouldn't do it. And she was fired. And she's ecstatic over the executive order. She also won a $360,000 settlement with her school district. But she said this. She said, the very thing I was fired over, the tide has completely turned. Now it's the teacher who participates in socially transitioning a student that's going to be in trouble, not the other way around, like it's been for the last several years. I mean, can you imagine there were students going to school creating additional identities for themselves. Some are even going into closets and changing their clothes and their hairstyle, and they're putting on, things like chest flatteners and, tuck pants and other things, and changing their name. And the teacher would whisper, "This is okay. We won't tell your mom and dad because I know they wouldn't like it. So you just do that at school, and we've got a safe place for you here." That is absolutely the opposite of what any non-parental individual is supposed to do. That is usurping the authority of the parents and undermining them in the eyes of the child. That's like saying, well, your parents are bad, so we're going to be the good adults in your life, and it'll be okay. All right, when I get back from this break, I'm going to tell you, we have a situation right here in Alabama with the Magic City Acceptance Academy. And y'all, the things that have been going on there even lately, unbelievable. And it's got to stop. And I'll tell you more about it when we get back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We will be right back. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Solid, conservative, and just plain right. Making common sense like a superpower. All right, we're going to go back and do a little more on some of the resources I got here. And then coming up top of the hour, don't forget, State Representative Mac Butler from House District 28, who just walked in the studio, by the way, is going to be on the air with us talking about this same stuff. But I mentioned right before I went to the break that when I say all these things about radical schools, about things that are happening in, places out there. And you may think it's places out there. Not here. Surely not here. I mean, not in North Alabama, Northwest Georgia, Central Alabama, Mississippi, Chattanooga. Not there. Yeah, there. In fact, perhaps one of the only one of its kind in the nation is a charter school we have right here using public funds in Birmingham, Alabama. It's called the Magic City Acceptance Academy. Some of y'all heard me talk about it before, but the Magic City Acceptance Academy may be the only school I know of, ever heard of, that is established on the charter of sexual orientation as much as education. It basically portrays itself as, let's look at the name, the Magic City Acceptance Academy. It's a friendly educational environment for LGBTQ teenagers. Come on. I don't know how they even got their public charter, but here we are. And they are using public funds because charter schools are public schools, just with a different style charter. But I've got a piece here from 1819 News, Dateline yesterday. And they point out that lawmakers, like my buddy Mac Butler is going to be on in a minute, are beginning to question how the Magic City Acceptance Academy keeps doing the things it's doing, knowing full well we passed the Divisive Concepts Law. How are they able to keep things posted on their website, some of which they've begun taking down, but only after they were pressed to do it? How are they continuing to provide some of the content they are, knowing full well that the state law should otherwise prohibit it? Well, let me tell you some of the things that have been happening over there here just in recent. How about Flapjack the drag queen that was there recently? Flapjack the drag queen doing a school fashion club at the Magic City Acceptance Academy about his journey with drag fashion. By the way, I'm reading you quotes from what these individuals put on their own social media. So Flapjack the drag queen was so excited to have been there wearing the famous box gown that, is a successful statement piece and talking fashion with the kids. Right. How about Robert Garofalo, a pediatrician who started one of the nation's first gender clinics back in 2013. He treats patients as early as 4 years old at his gender clinic. And he was recently there for a story time, and that's awesome. Garofalo has had patients as young as 15 have double mastectomies and has used medications to sterilize children and transition them. How about the Interfaith Alliance of Central Alabama? That can't be bad, right? Interfaith Alliance. Well, it gets a little sketchy when you begin to realize some of the participants in the Interfaith Alliance don't seem to have the whole, Christian ideology kind of down, right? You know what I'm saying? It's more like what they want it to be and pretend that it's church. Especially when they show up with books and they bring books like Sex, that's one of them. It's a graphic novel. Genderqueer, Homosexuality in Islam, Rise Up, How You Can Join the Fight Against White Supremacy, Gender Identity Workbooks for Teenagers, Becoming Eve, Holy Troublemakers and Unconventional Saints, and Beyond the Gender Binary. Those are actual books that were given to the school by members of the Interfaith Alliance. How about the Birmingham AIDS outreach? Well, that shouldn't be bad, should it? Well, it depends. You want to make sure kids understand some things, but then some things you look at and go, that was not necessary. Like when the presenter showed up wearing a t-shirt saying trans rights are human rights. And it's really the Birmingham AIDS outreach, and they present a sexually transmitted safe sex course to teenagers at the Magic City Acceptance Academy. All that's happening right now. And it's really kind of nauseating when you think about it. These are schools where, and I love the quote from my buddy Mac, who's going to be on the air with us in a minute. He said, classrooms have always been devoted to what has traditionally been called the 3 R's, reading, writing, and arithmetic, but there's some educators that want to add a 4th R, and that's radicalism. So we're going to talk to him about a bill he's got coming up here in a few minutes that is designed to coincide with President Trump's executive order. Because remember, an executive order it has the force of law until that executive order is rescinded by a next executive order. But when states are putting things in place under state law, we have an opportunity, at the very least, to protect the least among us with laws in our own state, and we should. Coming back in a minute with State Representative Mac Butler, Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We will be right back.
You're listening live to Rightside Radio with Phil Williams. It's hard to go wrong when you're on the right side. Rightside Radio. Solid, conservative, and just plain right.
Alabama and Tennessee syndicated news talk leader, Rightside Radio. Phil Williams here live in the Rightside studios. Man, we got the local, the state, the national, covering down on all the issues. And, oh yeah, like the dude just said, solid, conservative, and just plain right. Welcome to hour number 2 on a Taco Tuesday. Taco Tuesday, because it's always about food. Taco Tuesday. But, yeah, we're going to go right now to I've got somebody here in studio with me. You got the camera right? Good to go? We got a guest right here in studio with us, representing House District 28 in the Alabama State House. And, oh, by the way, a successful businessman and a longtime friend of mine, State Representative Mac Butler. How you doing?
Great to be with you again, Brother Phil.
It's good to have you, man. Thanks for making it happen in person. We
Yes,
appreciate
sir.
that. Hey, I've been talking the last little while. You caught the last few minutes of it. About what I call radical schools. It's a crying shame that schools and libraries have become central figures in wokeness and in radicalizing children and in trying to invade the province of the parents' authority. But they have. And not always, because, I mean, I've got educators in my family. There is a whole slew, the vast majority, I'd say, of the rank and file in the education arena are not at all that.
Right.
But the bad apples in there are making things worse.
One positive that happened from COVID, if there was a positive,
Yeah.
one positive was it exposed a lot of this.
Yes, it did.
Yeah, Mom looking over the shoulder of some assignments exposed a lot that we were unaware of.
And suddenly you're going, wait a minute, your teacher said what? Mm-hmm. Yeah. What's that hanging on the wall behind the teacher?
Right.
Why is that rainbow flag hanging there? You've got a bill, brother. I think it's House Bill 244.
Yes, sir.
Tell me about it.
All right, we're going to take pre-K to 12
Yeah.
and basically ban gender identity, sexual orientation, pronouns, and, as you say, like pride flags that I had no clue till people across the state started sending me pictures from the children's classrooms.
In Alabama.
You know, and even here in Etowah County recently, I had a student telling me about her teacher could not deal with the curriculum for promoting all things transgender. Of course, I did talk to the superintendent about it, but it's a real... These are adults that are making conscious decisions to sexualize children and not in a healthy way.
Yeah.
You're talking about a doctor cutting off body parts of children. We know their brain's not developed to really 27 years of age.
Yeah.
Medical majority in Alabama, as you know, is 14.
Which is crazy.
And we're working on that. Representative Susan DuBose is bringing a bill, which she is incredible, bringing a bill to hopefully move that up to maybe 18. It's far too young for these children to be making these lifelong decisions, but it's just that adults that are making decisions to sexualize our children, and we have got to stand up. Thankfully, now there's been a change, with Trump at the federal level, that we're literally now just matching his executive order. But we've been at war with the federal governments for so long. That's why you and I both have been big 10th Amendment rights folks.
Absolutely. I mean, it's almost as if we've been given, I said it earlier in my monologue, we've been given the freedom to breathe a little bit and to sort of go through a reset. And I love what Trump said in his acceptance speech. He's bringing back the era of common sense.
Absolutely.
And that's what this is, really. At the same time, it's also more than common sense. It's just right. We have laws that, like, for instance, statutory rape is called statutory rape because by statute, by law, kids are not old enough to give consent to have sexual relations. Yep. You can't get a driver's license till a certain age. You can't join the military till a certain age. You can't drink till a certain age.
That's right. Can't go to R-rated movie.
You can't get a Costco card.
That's right.
And all we're doing now with your bill is really just looking to set things right and saying, oh, by the way, all that talk about sexual identity is out of schools.
Let's keep that separate. We're not doing that great academically. Let's focus on the academics, the 3 R's.
All right, and not the 4th R being radical.
That's right. Which
was a great quote from you, by the way.
Thank you, sir.
Where's the bill right now? I know
it's pending action in committee, and
okay.
The chairman told me we would address it.
Is that Terry Collins?
In March, yes.
That's House Education Policy, correct?
Right. Yeah, and it should pass. We passed it last year, a little different version of it, and it didn't make it in the Senate. It was supposed to make, but the Senate had a meltdown there at the end. but we do believe we'll make it this time. Moms for Liberty is pushing hard. We got great Emily Jones, which is a rock
wonderful,
star.
Yeah. She's
doing
one of our
great.
podcasters here.
Okay. Yeah, she's fantastic. She's championing this issue, and she has exposed so much, sent me so much documentation that, we weren't aware that some of this was happening even here in our county. I called the superintendent to ask him about some of the apps, and they weren't aware that it was happening. But as soon as I contacted them about it, they shut it down. And then some of these things, they're not accessible after 3 o'clock. So that mom and dad couldn't see it. I mean, these people that are making this is agenda item, this decision to sexualize children they're smart. And we've got to be wise as a serpent and gentle as a lamb. And when time comes, we've got to become lethal and fight these issues.
I think it was Emily Jones who told me that she discovered on her, I think I'm correct in saying this, she discovered her son's Chromebook from school, which was school supplied, that the only way you could see some of what was on it was to log in to the Wi-Fi at the school itself. It had to recognize that URL for you to be able to open certain things.
They are clever.
And so she actually went and sat in the parking lot and opened it at the school.
She's more clever. Much more.
Well, that's why she's her podcast is called The Controversial Mom, because she's not afraid to get busy. Well, I mean, it's a crying shame that we've got stuff like this, but that is one of the things we have to deal with is sometimes the schools know it. Sometimes it's the activist groups that are supplying it, and it looks like, it's a wolf in sheep's clothing, and they get it in the front door. But I think one of the greater points is President Trump and your legislation here gives authority back to the parents to say, stop that.
Absolutely. At
the same time, you still have to be vigilant.
Right.
I mean, you've raised your kids.
And part of our role as men is to be a protector and a provider, and that's what I see this is literally. Let them be little. Let them be children. Protect their innocence as long as we can. The world is coming after them so quick, and now every child just about has that computer in their hand, their cell phone.
Yeah.
That is not wholesome on most days.
No, it's not. In fact, let me ask you this. Aren't y'all looking at a legislation right now that the governor wants that would ban phones in schools?
Oh, yes. Yeah. And as a former school board member for 10 years, I advocated for this. And as a school board member, because, the kids every day needed to call their mom for all their extracurricular activities, what they were doing, and it was handy. But the students caused so many problems. It would literally shut down the schools. And to be honest, when I was on the school board, it wasn't cheating. It was naked pictures.
Yeah. That
somebody would take a picture, send it to the boyfriend, and 5 minutes later they break up and they transmit it to the entire school. And thankfully, our DA in Etowah County at the time was an adult and didn't prosecute these children for, because it's basically possession of child pornography or distribution of child pornography. And they were just children, but they're so disruptive to the educational process. So I like Lee Halsey's bringing the legislation, which she's another fantastic representative from Shelby County. But, they still would have their phone. It has to be put away in their locker, in their purse somewhere, that not accessible, because it does. We all experience it, that our phone is a constant. We're wanting to reach for it.
Yeah. And
I'm learning now the longer we could prolong that from children, the better off they are.
Absolutely.
The mental anguish, just the anxiety they're getting from social media and the pressure of it. So, thinking back, we wish we would have delayed a lot of these things with the phones, but absolutely, school is not the place. And in other countries, they have cell phone jammers where in a school or a movie theater that you have no signal, it won't work. Those are illegal here. But, in a case of an emergency, they would be able to access it, but it does not need to be right there readily accessible. I know some teachers we have here in Etowah County, when you walk in the room, you place your phone on the chalkboard up there. So it's away from you, not calling to you.
Well, let me ask you, go back to your bill a minute.
Okay.
You said that it's going to come out of committee hopefully very soon, this month.
This month.
And then we've got y'all are in session if you went the full amount of time, because you can, once you pass the budget, you can leave anytime after that. But when would you expect it to go to the House floor, hopefully, like soon thereafter, I hope?
I do think the Speaker has been real supportive of this legislation.
Okay. So leadership is saying yes.
Yes, he was appalled to it last time when he saw what was actually happening with, that some of these assignments are plain pornographic.
Yeah.
And and some of this stuff is for elementary school kindergartners, and
It makes no sense.
yes, none whatsoever. We just think it doesn't have a place. You and I survived 12 years of school without it.
Yeah.
And this transgender
Amazing. Without phones too,
Yes.
apparently.
But this transgender movement changed in about 2012. In the DSM, it was a mental disorder, and then during the Obama administration, they changed it to gender dysphoria. It's still a mental disorder, and it's more compassionate to be honest and truthful with children. You're doing irreparable harm to little ones when you start cutting off body parts and giving them very powerful drugs.
I've said before that there is no other psychological disorder that I can think of where the healing is allegedly that we have to join them in the disorder.
That's right.
I mean, if it was bipolar, if it was schizophrenia, if it was depression, if it was anxiety, we would try to help them to get out of it, and even encourage them to get out of it. And the affirmation would be why they're better off not in it.
Great
and
point.
But in gender dysphoria, the left says we have to join them in it in order to heal them. Let me ask you this: have you got on your bill, House Bill 244? Is there a Senate companion bill? Is there a Senate sponsor yet? Do you know how that's going to work?
Yes, Senator Keith Kelly told me he would carry it up.
Outstanding. Keith Kelly's a great guy.
He is. Love Keith.
Well, listen, I am hopeful this bill is gonna make headway and do what it's supposed to do. And there's several things like this, and it's amazing that we have to keep playing because we passed the divisive concepts bill already,
Right.
and we've got Trump's executive order. And yet, I would bet, and you can back me up on this if you want to, but I would bet that 60% of everything we pass every year is a tweak to what's been done in the past because we have to keep staying current and we have to bring it up to certain standards or catch up with the loopholes or whatever else. Your bill is doing exactly that, filling a gap that shouldn't have to be there, but it still is.
A few years ago, it was not necessary, but today it is. And you mentioned the Magic City Acceptance Academy.
Yeah.
We as a legislature are going to have to exercise our authority is with the power of the purse.
Absolutely.
Because nothing else is getting their attention, but I guarantee
Yeah.
we impact dollars and cents, we will get their attention.
Yeah, you can't keep having some of the things they've had showing up at school for presentations and it be
it's
okay.
blatant.
It's
Just
they're not
right
even
in
trying to
your face.
pretend.
Yes, just in your face. And so I think it's coming to a head, and hopefully this time we're going to take care of it.
Well, Matt Butler, you've been a warrior for conservative causes for a while. Thank you for that.
Thank you, sir.
Absolutely. And we'll keep track of this one and keep us posted. Just text me if things move, all right?
I'll do it. Thank you so
All
much
right.
for having me.
That's State Representative Matt Butler from House District 28, right here in the Northeast Alabama area. He lives down the road from me in Rainbow City. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We will be right back. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Solid, conservative, and just plain right. Pulling pins on truth grenades. Hey, just so you know, and it's one of our dippers for the day, the House is going to be voting soon on the continuing resolution to fund government. I suspect it'll pass, but it's not without controversy. We'll talk about that in a few minutes. I'm on the one hand frustrated. At the same time, I'm also somewhat accepting of the fact that there's not really much choice here for this one. But this time next year, if they're not passing a true budget, then these Republicans are not really in charge. So we'll cover that more in more detail later. I got some text messages to clean up on. Let me jump on in there and see what we got. Jeff from Indiana says, Phil, I'm not sure if the ones who want to destroy this country realize they'd be committing suicide because they're the ones that rely on government to stay alive. It's a great point. And most of us on this side are like a country song. A country boy can survive, but will they? That's a great point. Cutting off their nose to spite their face. Killing the goose that laid the golden egg, I guess. JT Lacey Springs says, since Speedy Gonzalez and Slowpoke Rodriguez have been ICE deported, maybe a new theme song is warranted now. No, man. Speedy Gonzalez was a naturalized citizen.
They get to stay.
They get to stay. John from Huntsville says, Phil, spectacular monologue. This is earlier. Thank you, sir. He said, also, did you hear that Troy University in Alabama won their conference tournament last night and advanced to the March Madness tournament? I did not hear. Troy's in the March Madness?
Yep. We could
Really?
have several Alabama schools in the March Madness.
So that would be, we assume, Auburn, Alabama,
Yep.
Troy. Who else?
Maybe Stanford. I haven't
Stanford?
seen, Stanford was in it last year, I think. I don't know what conference they're in to win the championship, but yeah, we could have several. I don't know what conference. I think South Alabama's in Troy's conference, so they won't be in, but I think we could have 4.
Where's UNA?
UNA lost in their conference championship to Lipscomb to make it. So, but they were right on the edge. Lenny Acuff, the former UAH coach, is making his first March Madness appearance. So,
and what about UAB and JSU?
I don't think they will be in it. No,
Neither one.
No, I mean they would have to win their conference championship. So we'll see.
Yeah, true. Okay, that's cool though. Troy.
That's cool.
How about that?
Yeah.
Is that Troy's first appearance in the NCAA?
I would think so. I don't remember. I don't think they've ever made it before. I have to look that up.
Huh. Okay. Mike from Arab says, great job, brother. Great monologue. Thank you, sir. I'm taking advantage of every minute we've been given. Indeed. And we should. Gary from Decatur says, the left has used up all their key scams in the last 50 years, from racism, identity politics, class warfare. As long as the education institutions and colleges continue to push these terrible ideas to our young people, we'll continue to fight these battles. We have a chance to cut the head off this snake, and we cannot afford to lose this opportunity. Bam. Gary, you're doing the monologue tomorrow. Good stuff. Richard from Madison says, great monologue. Thank you, sir. Said, I don't have anything profound to add except to ask a question. Have you considered writing a book that contains the best of your opening monologues? Actually, yes. Said, I guess the problem would be either choosing the best ones or just making the book about 2,000 pages. Says, you're the OG right side ruffian. Thank you for that. Richard, man, I really appreciate that. And yes, that is in the works. I've been doing this for 4 years now, and every single day is a monologue. And then what I've done is I've taken pretty much at least one of those a week and gone through the editorializing process to make sure it's clean and ready. And I've got something like 110 of those set aside right now, ready for. I'm going to do a book called The Rightside Way. It's almost like a devotional. It's like little lessons on liberty and conservatism every day. So we'll see. We'll see what God does. Jeremy from Madison clarifying for me about the poem he sent earlier. I don't know why I'm reading this poem. I'm not going to read it out right now, but I guess what he's saying is it's the decay of society if I read it more clearly. So thank you about the Osmandius. Michael from Madison, just for crazy fun, if you enjoyed the movie Forrest Gump, you ought to check out the book. There's so much more stuff he does that never made it in the movie, such as being a professional wrestler and an astronaut and living with natives in the jungle. That's a crazy book. That's crazy. My friend Amy from Rainbow City says, Rainbow City is the safest city in Alabama, according to the FBI statistics, and best place to live in large part because of strong voices and courages of Senator Phil Williams, thank you, and Representative Matt Butler. Thank you both. Amy, thank you. I appreciate you. David from Bucky says, well, it's too long to read it for the break. All right, we're taking a break. We'll come right back, and I'll read it before I get done. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We will be right back. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Solid, conservative, and just plain right. Just covering down on some major ground across the southeast U.S. of A. Y'all, I'm talking about this show. Woo-hoo. Goes from Huntsville all the way back over to Chattanooga. I'm talking about from Tuscaloosa all the way back over to Gadsden. I mean all the way down to that prettiest little town on the plains called Auburn and stretching across the way into Fort Benning. Yes, I called it Fort Benning. And oh, by the way, big old patches of North Georgia and Mississippi thrown in just for good measure. All right, we got a lot of stuff. I'm going to go jump into something else here momentarily. Let me get a few more text messages. David from Bucky's says, maybe I'm behind the times. I can't figure out when, how, and why a child would, one, decide he or she was LGBT, or two, maybe he or she was born in the wrong body. He said, growing up in the 60s, sex and those things were never on our minds, at least not into the high school years. He said, I really can't imagine a young child making such a choice on his or her own. That's because they don't, brother. They don't. This is where they are led into, when you've got activists saying, well, we understand that even toddlers recognize sometimes that they're in the wrong body. No, they don't. No, they don't. You got activist parents and adults in their lives who are saying, oh, look, can we make him a girl? Can we make him a girl? Let's do it. Let's make him a girl. We'll tell all the world he wanted to. That's what they're doing. It's absolutely the influence of adults making this happen. Ken from Harvest says, Speedy Gonzalez was voiced by Mel Blanc, so Speedy is not only American, he's Jewish. That's awesome. Thank you very much. Mel Blanc was amazing with voices. And he could switch back and forth, too, just as quick as anything. It was amazing. Hey, by the way, let me jump back to that text from David from Bucky's about children. Listen, it is not uncommon for a child to question themselves. Why do I feel like this? Does that mean something's different about me? That is absolutely normal. And I think I need to say again that the left has tried to paint the transition of a child into a transgender environment or lifestyle as affirmation, and it's not. Because affirming a child means to affirm them as the way God made them. To look at a child and say, well, apparently you're wrong. Your body's broken. You're born wrong. We got to fix you. It's going to take some medication. It's going to take some surgeries. It's going to take a lot of changes to your lifestyle. You understand? We're going to change your name. We're going to dead name you. But that's what we got to do because, you're just wrong. That in itself is wrong. That's abuse. What you really do with a child who is having that very common moment of, I question me. What's going on with me? Why did I look twice? Why did I do this thing? Does that mean something about me? That happens all the time with kids. And what you do then is you tell them, look, you know what? God made you the best you could possibly be. There is no way in the world that he would make you broken. There's no way in the world God makes a mistake and says, oh, shoot, I forgot to put the girl in the boy's body. It doesn't work that way. So the reality is that affirmation is affirming a child in where they are, not in where the adult wants them to be. So anyway, I just felt like I need to say that again. Richard from Madison says, I would stand in the line for hours in the rain to purchase a copy of what? Oh, my book?
Your book.
Richard, you won't have to, and I appreciate that. And I tell you what, we got a lot of irons in the fire over here at Rightside Media. And I mean, when I say a lot of irons in the fire, holy smokes, we got a lot of irons in the fire. But that's going to happen. And you know what, brother? When the time comes, you'll get a copy. How about that? Allie from Athens wants to know if I need a copy editor. Allie, I know where you are, girl. Brian from Huntsville says, the only girly mag we had in my high school was Sports Illustrated Swimsuit Edition. Yes. And it was probably not allowed in your library for various reasons, right? And then Herb from Gurley says, you mentioned something with the in-studio interview today that reminded me of a question. Do you know of any effort to allow psychiatrists to treat LGBT whatevers as a malady? They used to treat that, but somehow it was disallowed. When you say, do I know of any effort to allow it? Yes, there are psychologists and psychiatrists who will treat gender dysphoria as that thing that just needs to be overcome and worked through. And like I said a moment ago, affirming the child in who they actually really are. There are those. The left wants to believe that's heretical, that you're trying to tell a child that they're not right. No, you're trying to tell them they're not right. So Herb, there's been no stopping the fact that there is a medical community out there that still pursues what I would call truth and science. But there's also an entire level of activist medicine that does just the opposite. And then Herb from Gurley says, we have Gurley mags at my house. Dun-dun-dun. Thank you very much. Be in the area all day. Thank you. All right, listen, I gotta jump down this. Okay, some of this stuff, man. I got stuff here that's like, it's just, someone's gonna curl your hair. So you know the deal. Every once in a while, I look around and I go, oh my Lord, at the wokeness. How much, my gosh, at the wokeness. I mean, and next thing you know, I've got an entire plethora of wokeness, a veritable cornucopia, a charcuterie, if you will, a buffet of wokeness. That means it's time for another round of adventures in woke world.
Adventures in woke world.
Yeah. You know what's amazing is I'm looking at some of these stories that I've got right here today. And and part of me goes, what? Stop it. But what I really like is that a lot of the stuff that I'm going with today is really beginning to be the evidence of the repudiation of wokeness. Most of my stories today, and by the way, I'm going to call for that audio on the minute ago for audio 1, Whoopi Goldberg. Oh, gee, I'm letting Whoopi's voice come out of my show. But
it's only right when it's Adventures in Woke World.
That's true. She's an example. She's a case study in wokeness. She's a case study in a lot of things.
Yeah.
But I tell you what, let's do her first because she's clinging to it, man. She's clinging to it. So it's apparently was Women's Day or is it Women's Month or what?
It was Women's Day International Women's Day on Saturday, I think.
Yeah, I think it was Saturday. Yes. Well, to celebrate International Women's Day, the ladies from The View decided to interview a dude who thinks he's a girl. None other than Dylan Mulvaney. Dylan Mulvaney sat there looking sweet and demure, proud to be a dude in a dress. And Whoopi began going into an entire diatribe about what's the big deal with guys and women's sports. Play it.
Well, I think part of the problem that the trans community is facing, and it's the same problem that women face, is if you don't know anything about our bodies, you don't know how it works. Mm-hmm. So when you come in and you say, oh, these are men, competing against women, you're assuming that the women are weak and just can't do anything except be here. Have you seen female athletes? They know what they're doing. Mm-hmm. So I'm not sure what's going on or why this is an issue.
I look at that and I think, okay, Whoopi, you're trying too hard to skirt the issue. I mean, all right, now granted, I'm not going to say that everything that there's nothing that a woman can do better than a man. I've watched videos of like Gina Carano, just like, or Ronda Rousey, wearing out a dude. Like, I mean, she was a beast, but she was trained to be a beast, and he wasn't.
But also, if she went up against other trained males, she'd get whooped.
If she got in the octagon with one of the guys in a weight class, even a comparable weight class, it would not go well. I mean, not everybody's going to wind up being, Black Widow from the Marvel characters, right? But the truth of the matter is, Whoopi is trying to pretend that they've still got an argument. And I'll be honest, they don't. They are losing this argument on and how just like gross that she's sitting there celebrating International Women's Day with a dude who thinks he's a woman. It's just, what?
Well, I was saying that might not even be the worst soundbite from that interview. I don't know if you saw the one where she said something about how y'all say God doesn't make mistakes, right? Well, then pretty much trying to argue that God making somebody think that they should be a girl when they're not. Like God put that thought in their head, and like that was God mandated that you become a woman when you're actually a dude. When it's complete. First of all, that's complete blasphemy, and she's trying to use the argument that God doesn't make mistakes and twist it into that awful narrative. Like, God wants you to transition to a girl or to a boy or whatever.
You know what's funny is, though, she can't read the room anymore. She can't read the room and see that the fad, which is what transgenderism is, people, you can't call it it's a fad. It's a fad. It was all the rage, and it's on the wane right now. And I don't know why it was given so much credibility, so much credence. I don't know why it was given so much weight. But the idea that society was going to go long term on the notion that, hey, today I feel like a girl. Tomorrow I might feel like an old woman. Today I feel like a young man. I identify as, you can't keep reinventing your reality to go with your notions and your feelings and your whims. Nothing works that way in life.
And it's fun to act like, oh, a girl can go up against let's sit you down and let's watch an event of a girl go up against a guy and see what you think after that. So well, you can say it all you want, but
we have been, and we've also had some testimony. Look at who Trump had as a guest at the State of the Union speech he gave last week. He had a young lady there who still got traumatic brain injury because she was just basically clocked by a dude who shouldn't have been playing against her in volleyball. And you got, any number of other injuries you can look at around the nation. You got upwards of 900 medals / trophies / championships that dudes have taken from women, which means they lost scholarships and other things. But Whoopi Goldberg, I played that clip to show you they're still out there. Obviously, they're still out there. We know they are. They're still out there. And that was such a lame stretch. She didn't even, if I had gone up against her in court or in a debate at the state senate or something like that, I would look at that and go, you offered me nothing. I've got nothing to even rebut except that's the stupidest thing I've ever heard.
You did your own rebutting.
Yes, you basically rebutted yourself. How about this, though? Pulled this from PJ Media. Right before we go to the break. You may want to know that the U.S. Department of Agriculture is canceling some grants. Oh, Doge is at work. The USDA just recently canceled a grant that was, spending your tax dollars to study the bowel movements of women who identify as men. Well, and not only that, they were also canceling grants to study how women who think they're men still have menstrual cycles.
Funny how that works.
I look at this and go, what? Yeah, okay, so the bottom line is this. Those are your tax dollars. And it was a grant. And you may want to be just, keenly aware that it was granted to LSU's Agricultural Mechanical College. What? Why? Why did they have a grant on that? Okay. But they did discover, though, it's very clear that a woman will have a monthly menstrual cycle for about at least 40 years of her life. You think? It's also important to recognize that transgenders and people with masculine gender identities and intersex and non-binary persons may also have menstrual cycles. That's because they're women. But you know what I find most gratifying is the first part of that title. The USDA canceled a grant. How much was this grant? I don't even see a number in here. All I know is they had a grant to do this stuff. Y'all, the things that your tax dollars have been slung at for the last 4 years are just to the point of being gross. Let's take a break, JP, while I gather myself and go take a quick shower. I'm saying. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Hey, by the way, did you hear there's a new name for homelessness? I'll tell you all about it. Y'all stay tuned. We'll be right back. Rightside Radio, solid, conservative, and just plain right. Just giving you all the truth you can slap on a bumper sticker. All right, so so I'm in Adventures in Woke World, and I was about to go into this other story I've got on homelessness, which has been rebranded, by the way, until JP found something online that we got to listen to now. This happened today, JP?
This was about an hour ago.
That's today. Apparently this is a House, Congress. This is a House hearing. And I believe you said that it's Representative Keith Self from Texas who is chairing it?
Yep, it was Keith Self referring to Sarah McBride.
Sarah McBride, which, by the way, is the first openly transgender member of Congress from the great state of Joe Biden, Delaware.
Mm-hmm.
And what did you say the quote under it was?
It says, all hell just broke loose at a House hearing after, quote, Sarah McBride is accurately called Mr.
Play it.
I now recognize the representative from Delaware, Mr. McBride.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Ranking Member Keating, also wonderful.
Mr. Chairman,
I'm sorry.
could you repeat your introduction again, please?
Yes, we have set the
Representative.
standard on the floor of the House, and I'm simply.
What is that standard, Mr. Chairman?
The
Would you
standard-
repeat what you just said when
I-
you introduced a duly elected representative from the United States of America? Please.
I will. The representative from Delaware, Mr. McBride.
Mr. Chairman, you are out of order.
Oh, God.
Mr. Chairman, have you no decency?
No
I mean,
decency.
I've come to know you a little bit, but this is not decent.
We will continue this
You
hearing.
will not continue it with me unless you introduce a duly elected representative the right way.
This hearing is adjourned.
Nice. In their face. So let me just go ahead and point something out there. I said a minute ago that the vast majority of what I've got here today is Adventures in Woke World, and it's clear that the shift in everything has gone back to the era of common sense. They now have on the House floor, according to the Speaker of the House, they now have the Mike Johnson. They have the policy in place now. The House rule is you will be recognized as a Mr. or Mrs. because they use formal terms. You're not allowed to use first names. You have to say like the gentlewoman or gentle lady or Mr. So and so, yeah, Sarah's a dude, and Sarah's going to be called a dude at every given turn, and they can't handle it. And I love the fact that Keith Self, who was apparently not the chairman, but he was acting as chairman for the day, he wasn't putting up with it. He goes, "Fine, we're done," and just gavelled out.
By the way, that was Bill Keating, the representative from Massachusetts, that threw a fit about
Okay.
it. So
Wonderful. Massachusetts and Delaware going at it. Unbelievable. All right, listen. Hey, I got to tell you this. This is very important. I think y'all should know this. The lexicon of wokeisms continues to grow. Story here from Front Page Magazine. We've had terrorism rebranded as man-caused disasters. We've had criminals called justice-involved persons. And then we've had women being chest feeders. Oh, my God. The Woke Language Brigade is at it again, says this particular author, so you can no longer call them homeless. Pray tell, why? Well, in Kentucky, they refer to it now as urban camping. I'm not kidding. You're laughing over there. I am not kidding.
that's funny.
I'm looking at it right now. Kentucky makes urban camping a crime and has a homeless court to help deal with it. Listen, I've done a lot of camping in my days. Drug use, disease, prostitution, living on the streets, taking a dump in the doorways of businesses, and just generally causing mayhem and trashing an entire section of town is not what I would call camping. That's not glamping for sure. It's not camping. It's not urban camping. It's not even homelessness. It's just people living on the street. That's what it is. Let's be honest. And it's unreal. But hey, in Kentucky right now, of all places, it's urban camping. Good Lord. I got more. We'll finish this up in a minute. The repudiation of all things woke is happening. Adventures in Woke World. Y'all stay tuned. We will be right back.
You're listening live to Rightside Radio with Phil Williams. It's hard to go wrong when you're on the right side. Rightside Radio. Solid, conservative, and just plain right.
Alabama and Tennessee's syndicated news talk leader, Rightside Radio. Phil Williams here live in the Rightside studios. Man, we got the local, the state, the national, covering down on all the issues. And oh yeah, like the dude just said, solid, conservative, and just plain right. Well, welcome to hour number 3 on a Taco Tuesday. I'm going to need some applause for this one, JP. I'm in Adventures in Woke World, and every single story I pulled was, for the most part, was a repudiation of wokeness, which I'm loving. To include the fact that I've got a story here from the New York Post. You may be familiar with this, but apparently work has been underway now to dismantle Black Lives Matter Plaza's street mural in Washington, D.C. Hit me some applause. Woo! Nice double play. Good stuff. Yeah, so you may remember back in 2020, knee-jerk governance. How can we virtue signal? How can we virtue signal? What do we do? Let's paint the street and rename it after Black Lives Matter. Well, okay. You know what? Everybody does agree that Black lives do matter. We all do. I think all lives matter. But what that really was basically a virtue signal to an organization that became known as charlatans and tax cheats and frauds and hucksters and race baiters. So, yeah, the evolution of Black Lives Matter, according to the New York Post, was on 16th Street Northwest, just north of Lafayette Square and the White House, so by the way. First announced by D.C.'s Democrat Muriel Bowser. Well, it's now part of D.C.'s mural scheme, but they're going to do away with it. And why would that be? Well, the White House called to withhold the city's funding, unless it removed the mural and renamed the location back to Liberty Plaza. Think about that. They went from Liberty Plaza to the naming of a activist group, Black Lives Matter Plaza. So there was a bill introduced last week. This story is Dateline yesterday. Introduced last week by Representative Andrew Clyde from Georgia, a Republican, aiming to, quote, withhold certain apportionment funds from the District of Columbia unless the mayor of the District of Columbia removes the phrase Black Lives Matter from the street symbolically designated as Black Lives Matter Plaza and redesignates it as by the way, that's redesignates it as Liberty Plaza. It's just, you just look at it and go, I think I need that audio. I think I need that sound effect again. Just hit me some applause and hallelujah if you feel like it. Thank you. It's like common sense is coming back. It's wonderful. How about this one? Did you see, JP? I don't know this show. The Love is Blind show. You're nodding your head. People can't see you nod your head on the radio.
I don't watch it, but I've heard of it, yes. Because I have a little sister that watches stuff like that, so yeah.
Oh, bless her. Okay. Love is Blind. Is that basically one of those like fake love shows where they establish a relationship in front of the TV cameras and then decide which one they're going to marry?
I think it's kind of along the same thread as 90 Day Fiance sort of deal. But yeah, they had like a wedding ceremony on TV.
To me, that's always been like cheap artificial relationships.
Yeah.
It's purely for TV.
Pick on the lonely people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But anyway, did you see the one where the bride decided at the altar during the vows to go ahead and tell the guy, and apparently he didn't know it was coming, that she just couldn't abide by the idea of being married to him because he didn't support Black Lives Matter and his church was like too traditional.
Yep. And what's even funnier is that she was like, I've known this for a while, but I don't know. I just kind of, like it's almost like it was a last second decision. It's like, so you wanted to do this in front of the camera to virtue signal.
That's exactly what it is. And then Tommy Lauren, who's a conservative pundit, she said, is there anything more annoying than a liberal white woman? But I'm just going to go ahead and say, that dude dodged himself a big old bullet.
Yes,
that was a heat round, and he just stepped out of the way, and it flew right by.
I don't think she's gotten the recognition or the response that she wanted. I think she's getting mocked, rightfully so.
Well, she's about to be the meme of all memes. Mm-hmm. She's about to be the chick that no one wants to say they went to the altar with, ever. Like And by the way, good luck when she actually does find real love and the guy proposes and then begins to go, wait a minute, is she going to do that kind of stuff to me? Because she was willing to do that to him on TV. Anyway, the idea that she literally said that, and she's at the altar and she's trying to be very serious. I know the connection we have is so real, and my heart is there, but we talk a lot about values and making this decision. My heart is telling me I can't. You're in a wedding dress at the altar. And now you decide that BLM is more important than your relationship.
And I don't think that she's going to find actual love, or she's going to put that above everything else.
Well, she might, but it'll be somebody else who has their own standards. And by the way, what she basically did was said that my love is conditional.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. And so it doesn't work like that. How about this one? As long as we're repudiating wokeness, I'm loving this stuff. This is like, I'm having a good time. I feel like I should be cackling with glee as I do this. So, piece on the Daily Signal. Teacher who was fired for not using students' trans pronouns wins a settlement. Oh, yeah. So this is Wisconsin. Wisconsin School District on Friday agreed to pay out $20,000 to a teacher who was terminated for refusing to use preferred names and pronouns for transgender students. You heard about dead naming? You know what that is? Dead naming? Mm-hmm. Dead naming. How stupid. It's on your birth certificate. I'm sorry. What do you want me to do? You go to court and change your name, we can talk. Until then, your name is John. But Jordan Cernak is a English teacher, sued the Argyle School District in Wisconsin in July of 24 after his contract was not renewed, alleging the district violated his free exercise of religion. And guess what? They decided to pay up because they could see where things were going. So basically in 2022, that was when the madness was really deep. I mean, you were like neck deep in alligators at that point. But 2 trans-identifying students in his classes requested that staff refer to them by using preferred pronoun. Can you imagine? You go to school, excuse me, English teacher? By the way, he was an English teacher. Mr. English teacher, I don't care what grammar that you teach. I want you to change the usage of pronouns to be what they are not. I would say he had a dual moment here. He had a faith-based moment, but he had what good does it do for me to teach something if I'm going to turn right around and say it's not real? That's like the biology teacher being forced to say that gender is fluid. I'm a biology teacher. It's like a math teacher being forced to say 2 + 2 is not going to be 4 today. No, I'm sorry, it just is. Anyway, old boy won some money.
Hey,
whoop, whoop.
This turned out well for him.
It did, and I've got one more. Libs of TikTok, always good. Libs of TikTok says there's been no shortage of leftist meltdowns across the internet after Donald Trump took office. Some have developed only minor cases of Trump derangement syndrome. Others are displaying severe symptoms. Meet Fred Wilson, a social studies teacher at the Egg Harbor Township High School in New Jersey, who wears radical woke leftist clothing every day to school with comments on his shirts. And it was made known, and he's no longer there. Dun, dun, dun. When you go to school wearing shirts that say things like trans lives matter, parents might have a say. Guess what? Apparently the parents had a say.
You know, these people are just a walking endorsement of school choice.
You know what? As a matter of fact, I think it even says that in the article. Now that you say that, well done, sir. Yeah, but the bottom line is they are. All of these are just like walking endorsements of school choice. All I know is this, and I mean it when I say it. There are more of us than there are them, right? And I say that all the time. The lovely Charlene is who coined that phrase for me. But I think that is. I mean, I think what we're looking at right now is Adventures in Woke World. I did the entire segment, and I've been doing that for 4 years. The entire segment was not on things that are happening, but on things that are being repudiated. In fact, what I noticed today when I was getting the show ready was I go, oh, woke story. Oh, wow, look at that woke story. But then I realized every one of them had that theme. They were all struggling to get their messaging across because they've lost the moment. Some of them know it. Some of them are still hanging on by their thumbnails, by Whoopi Goldberg. But the air has gone out of the tires. They are no longer in charge, and the insane asylum is being set aright.
They lost their air cover. And
they did.
Instead of Adventures in Woke World, the segment may have to turn into the collapse of Woke World.
I like it.
You can't take adventures in a world that is collapsing as we know it.
It's just amazing to watch. It's also fun to watch. It's also time for a break. Let's take a break right now. We'll take that break. We'll come right back. Get some text messages. Y'all text it in and call it in, 833-687-4448. That's 833-68-RIGHT. Phil Williams, Right Side Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We will be right back. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Solid conservative, just plain right. Bulletproof influence. That's what I say. Bulletproof influence. Hey, by the way, speaking of which, now that I said that out loud, that was not intended, but I'll go for it. You might want to check out our merchandise store. So we've got on the rightsidemedia.org website all our stuff. You can live stream the show. You can watch all our podcasts. You can read the stuff that gets written and published in various newspapers around the region. You can see what the recommended reading list is, all the stuff. Everything's on there, to include our new merchandise store. We have hats, shirts, coffee mugs, and we have the coolest thing in the list, I think. I mean, they're all pretty cool, but by the way, we're about to add more. But we get the coolest thing is they're these highball glasses. They're engraved with the Rightside Media logo, and it says Bulletproof Influence, and there's a .308 round embedded in the glass as if it tried to pierce, but it couldn't. Because, we like to say, Rightside Media Bulletproof Influence. So check that out. It's all in the Rightside store. Just go shop online. Natalie's in charge of our merchandise. She mails things out every several days, and we've had just a bunch of folks. I mean, we had to restock already, which is very cool. Loving that. But anyway, check it out. Rightsidemedia.org, all our stuff. Dave from Capshaw says, since Musk has Tesla, he should buy Dodge and drop the second D to make it Doge. That's funny. That would be funny. Driving a Doge Challenger. The Doge Challenger Hellcat.
Or maybe he should just just change the name of the Cybertruck to the Doge truck.
The Doge.
We gotta do some branding here for him.
Why not? David from Bucky's again says, Phil, why talk about Whoopi? She promised to leave the country if and when Trump was elected. She's still here. So much for her telling the truth. You know, that's a great point, David. It's a great point. Someone buy her a plane ticket. Brian from Huntsville says, men who go trans don't have menstrual cycles. They might have kidney stones, though. God. You know, this audience. JT Lacey Springs sends me something. What is that? Open it up. It says, has a guy holding up a sign, says, the weakest men compete with girls, the weakest minds celebrate it. Perfectly said. Perfect. The weakest men compete with girls, the weakest minds celebrate it. Unreal. And yes. And then Mike from Florence says, what if the woke world hit our favorite songs like Sarah from Starship? What? Unfortunately, you have to sing it for the joke to be funny. Transgender Sarah, storms are brewing in your eyes. What? Okay, Mike, come back to us. Come back to the light. Just come back to the light, Mike. It's going to be okay. Hey, we're going to jump into this next segment here in a minute regarding the continuing resolution. Right now, we see the House is set to vote on the spending bill to avert a government shutdown. I suspect it'll pass. Majority of Republicans are on board. And listen, I don't like the CRs. I don't. But I will tell you that I think Speaker Johnson has been dealt a pretty awful hand because he couldn't get it done in the last couple of years. The Senate would not have taken it up. But now we've got the opportunity to move things forward with Chuck Schumer not being in charge of the Senate. So Speaker Johnson said just the other day on an interview, I think on Laura Ingraham, I'm not positive, it may have been Maria Bartiromo, that there is going to be an absolute effort, like a real deal push to bring a true budget to the floor using the actual regular order of business budgeting processes next year. And I say next year because that's what it's going to take. It shouldn't have to be that hard, but it is. But right now, I think they're stuck with having to pass a CR for a variety of reasons. Well, we have one Republican who has been holding out, who drew the ire of President Trump, Thomas Massey. And I'll be honest with you, I like Massey. I think Massey is a great principled individual. I think Massey has been a conservative where some people were uncomfortable with going too conservative. He always did what he felt like was right. Well, Massey has said he won't vote for it because it does not contain enough spending cuts. I don't know if they'll allow him the opportunity for some amendments and let them get voted up or down, but Massey is holding his own. And JP and I were talking earlier. President Trump came out really hard. And that's one of the things that bugs me sometimes. And I'll be the first to say it. I don't think Thomas Massey deserved to be compared to Liz Cheney because he's standing on conservative principles. I recognize there's a lot at stake, and there is. But Trump came out in just in one of his assaults, it was like he was talking to Adam Kinzinger or Liz Cheney. He's talking to Thomas Massey, one of his allies. And it didn't sit well, to be honest.
I love Massey too. I do think he is wrong on this issue.
I think he is.
Well, okay, I say wrong. This is exactly this is what Massey's been about his whole time, and he's a financial hawk this. So it's expected that Massey would do this, but although he's wrong on this issue, like you said, I think he's a great conservative. I mean, this is the guy that literally is living off of the grid, quite literally. He built his own house from scratch, living off the grid, like a true salt of the earth, conservative. So I think it's fair to say that the way Trump went about it was maybe wrong, but I think that was Trump trying to do like what he did to Zelensky, airing out your grievances with him in front of everybody, try to work on him to get him to flip. But I don't think Massey's going to change his mind on this, because that's who he is, and he stands on his own principles. I mean, whether you agree with Massey or not, you got to respect he's standing on what he thinks is right.
Yeah.
But I think right now he needs to. I think he's wrong on this.
What's kind of funny? It's like he's not wrong, but he's wrong.
Yeah.
That's where we are right now.
He's sticking to what he thinks is right, although I think it's wrong.
Well, we're going to break it down in a few minutes, but yeah, this is one of those cases where I felt like Trump was bloodying it up one of his own a little more than was necessary. That's his style. We know it. We've seen it for years. He can be combative. I also think sometimes he just gets up in the morning and starts mean tweeting. But the reality is this: the continuing resolution is going to have to get passed this time. And how many times have we had to say this time? But this time we have a House and a Senate and a presidency. We can get something passed next year. We can. And the regular order of business is supposed to be that the various committees provide their budgets for their respective portion, like defense, like House and Human Services, or Health and Human Services. Any number of different committees supply their portion of the budget, passed out of committee, it's compiled, and then through the regular order of business, a budget is then voted up or down with amendments or not. Right now, what we're seeing is we haven't had that in years. We got to get back to it. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We will be right back. Hey, all you Rightside ruffians out there, you are listening to Rightside Radio, solid conservative, just plain right. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, solid conservative and just plain right. Just covering down on some major ground across the southeast U.S. of A. Y'all, I'm talking about this show. Whew, goes like from all the way from Huntsville on back to Chattanooga. I'm talking about from Tuscaloosa back on to Gadsden. I'm talking about all the way down there to that prettiest little town on the plains called Auburn. And oh, yeah, stretching across the border into Fort Benning. I did call it Fort Benning. And oh, even big old pieces of northwest Georgia and Mississippi thrown in just for good measure. All right, a couple of quick texts, and I'll go to the phones. Marshall from Dubai, he says, Phil, I've said this time and time again. If these people want to leave the country because of Trump derangement syndrome, I'll make a deal with any of them. I'll pay 100% of the relocation expenses on 2 conditions. They renounce their citizenship to the United States, and they never come back under any conditions. I think we could set up a GoFundMe on that. Just saying. And then Danny from Pinhook, Alabama says, Thomas Massey is not wrong. It's just not the right time. Have faith, be patient, work the plan. I agree with that. And Gary from Decatur has chimed in too. He says, Massey may be principled on this issue, but it only hurts the Republican agenda. He'll be primary because the time to get these bills passed is now. I don't think he will. I think he'll be fine. I think Massey was elected to be who he is, and I think he'll be fine.
I think he's very much liked by his constituents.
I think so too. But I do hope, right now we can't lose but 2 Republicans, otherwise the vote goes down. And then we still got to have 6 Democrats join us in the Senate, because we got to have 60 votes. Let me run to the phones real quick. Who's that? Is that Jeff Rowe from Indiana? Jeff, how you doing, buddy?
I'm doing pretty good. I'm just in a birthdays. Granddaughter yesterday. Birthdays, like D-A-Z-E.
Oh, you're the birthdays. I got you.
Yeah.
Oh, well.
I had a granddaughter born yesterday. Today's the wife's birthday, and my son's birthday is tomorrow. So, yeah.
Wow.
I'm in the birthdays.
You are full up. Yeah. Full up. Are you on the road right now?
Yes, I just got back into Tennessee.
Well, good for you.
Cross the line.
So you're not quite to the Nashville drive yet, huh?
Yeah, but it's going to be wonderful when I get there.
Well, what do you think about all this stuff today, man?
Hey, I'm getting tired of Congress skirting the bill and everything. Their duty is to make a budget.
It is.
And they just keep pushing it down the line. When are they going to actually do their duty? It is their duty to do this instead of just passing the buck. So Massey is he's right. He may not be liked for what he's doing right now, but he's trying to hold somebody's feet to the fire. And if they don't do it now, when are they going to do it?
Yeah, like here in Alabama, as a state, we have a mandate in our state constitution that the budget has to be balanced each year. So you can't do deficit spending as a rule in Alabama. Doesn't mean they always get it right, but for the most part we do now, since Republicans took over. But at the federal level, there's no mandate or requirement or constitutional requirement that they have a balanced budget. That's why they're allowed to get away with this. But it's one of those things where just because you can doesn't mean you should. And we're watching the abuse of the opportunity here the last few years with Schumer and Pelosi really at the helm.
It's politicians hiding again.
Yeah.
It's like I'm not going to make these hard cuts and everything because people won't like me. It's the reason why we're $30-some trillion in debt is because of this right here. Is because nobody has the gusto to go out and make a hard decision and do what's right. They're just hiding behind their predecessors, and it's got to end, or this country's going to come to a fall.
I would agree. And I think that, we heard just the other day, and I hope he's going to stick to it. Speaker Johnson says that they need this CR to give them the breathing room now that they finally have the House, the Senate, and the presidency. Because, before that, Biden could have used, somebody would have signed a veto. They didn't have the ability to get it through a Senate anyway. Now we got all 3. If we don't have a balanced budget by the beginning of next fiscal year, we're wrong. I mean, at that point, we're not even in the game anymore.
Yeah, it's like I say, they're I'm not going to hold my breath until they do it because They've said these things before and everything. There's too many irons in the fire that can go wrong, and we need some leadership in the Senate and the House. And if they're not leaders, then they need to get out of the way and let somebody who can lead.
Well, we'll know in about what it was going to be 8 months, 6 months, because end of September is when the new fiscal year. They have to pass a new budget by the end of September. This CR they're doing today only gets them through the remainder of this fiscal year, and that's it. But anyway, all right, brother, be safe on do what?
Maybe need to do it like a March Madness bracket and everything. Let's see which Congress members go one way or the other and everything.
I think it's
the winner at the end of
I think it's madness up there every month of the year. That's just saying. All right, be safe on the road, brother. We'll talk to you again tomorrow.
Have a good one, Phil.
See you, buddy. Just a couple of quick things before we go to the break. So there's several things to think about here. First of all, isn't it ironic that the Democrats are opposed to the CR now? It was always the way. How dare the Republicans talk about shutting down the government? So Dems oppose this now? Oh, isn't that convenient? Well, they're claiming, Hakeem Jeffries is claiming that this bill will in some way create the largest cut to Medicaid in American history. That's such crap. There's no Medicaid cut embedded anywhere in this. Not at all. Not at all. That's just the Democrats trying to find a lie to justify their behavior. The reality is this particular continuing resolution does several things that are actually pretty good. It's a continuing resolution that would essentially extend fiscal year 2024 spending levels through the start of the fiscal 2026 year. It's backed by President Trump. It's got to pass the House and Senate and then be signed by the president by midnight Friday. Otherwise, government shuts down. But under the measure, even then, defense spending is going to get about a $6 billion boost, but they're cutting back on non-defense discretionary spending by $13 billion. So they literally are moving money around to prioritize it and cutting spending in some places in order to give it a boost. In other words, it's yay. They've also increased the budgeting for ICE. They're getting plussed up in the budget and moving the money from other places. The House Freedom Caucus actually supports this, which is usually one of my bellwethers. Where's the Freedom Caucus? What are they saying? What do they know that I don't know? They see things daily. What do they got? House Freedom Caucus supports it. They say this CR is a paradigm shift. This bill, they say, the Freedom Caucus says, will reduce and then freeze spending for the next 6 months to allow President Trump and his administration to continue their critical work. Now, here's the thing. Part of what Republicans are saying is we are on a roll with DOJ right now. If we shut down government, DOJ has to stop. We don't want that. And I agree. So we don't want to handcuff things right when we're really getting it going. I don't like this. I'm not a fan. I'm not. I consider myself to be somewhat fiscally hawkish. Generally speaking, I am absolutely opposed to deficit spending and to tax increases. And I hate it when Republicans find a way to let a tax decrease lapse. But I recognize the conundrum they're in right now. They just got, a month and a half ago, just got the House and the Senate seated with a president seated, all of which are now moving towards a real budget by September. Today, though, just for today, if more than 2 Republicans vote it down, it won't pass, assuming everybody's in attendance.
Well, also you mentioned earlier that this would need a majority in the Senate. Is this not a part of the reconciliation process where they just need like a simple majority in the Senate, not the whole 60 votes in the Senate?
I don't think so. In this case, I think it's a stopgap funding measure, so it's going to require 60.
Or was the reconciliation process part of, putting the tax cuts and stuff in this bill that ultimately will need 60 still in the Senate? I think that's...
Yeah, it's going to take 60, I think, this time, no matter what, in the Senate to get this thing through and over to the president to sign. And by the way, Democrats, piece here from Town Hall. Democrats, the headline says, are trying to kill DOJ by killing a continuing resolution. So the point is made by townhall.com, which is one of my conservative go-tos. So right now what I'm seeing in general, a lot of times I look at Massey and I go, yeah, he's got it. But a lot of times I also look at Chip Roy Well, Chip Roy's all for it. Okay. Chip Roy, Freedom Caucus guy, he's all for it. Well, I love Chip Roy. But townhall.com says this, says if passed, this will free spending and eliminate waste, ensuring that Trump's America First agenda moves forward. It will also fund mass deportations of illegal immigrants and secure the southern border. In addition, this CR will root out corrupt deep state spending, that's Doge. And the only thing it won't do is make Democrats happy. So it's doing things in the budget that we want. It's continuing the efforts that are currently underway and really just getting started. It's making sure that Doge is moving. It's making sure that the mass deportations keep moving. It's making sure that all of the rooting out of waste in the DOD is continuing. It's making sure that our military is plussing up in terms of its readiness. Chip Roy comes back. Daily Wire's got a piece from him. Chip Roy says on the Ben Shapiro show, he said, I'm not a huge fan of kicking the can down the road, the continuing resolution, as being the best form of how we fund our government. But what I do believe, he says, is you got to figure out how to empower President Trump and Elon Musk to continue keeping the lights on to carry out Doge. So basically what he's saying is, I do not want to stop the good stuff we got going right now. And that's the conundrum we're in. So that's what they're voting on today. And I assume they'll go to the vote. I mean, I think that he's going to have to fight for the votes. Right now, we had two members. Who were they? Let's see where they go. I got that in my list right here. We had two members, Tim Burchett out of Tennessee and Corey Mills out of Florida, both saying they were on the fence. Thomas Massey says he's against it. Right now, that's the potential for a loss of 3 votes. I suspect that Tim Burchett and Corey Mills are going to come back around, and Thomas Massey might be standing by himself.
I think a government shutdown is a win for the Democrats.
Oh, I think it absolutely is.
So, but also you have to play devil's advocate of, do we think we're actually going to pass a clean budget in September or whatever, or are we just going to kick the can down the road again? So like, I get where Massey's coming from. It's like, we've done this however many times, but we can't stop the winning with a government shutdown right now. But I mean, it's just, I don't know what the chances are of passing a clean budget bill in September are either. So.
Sometimes you get in those positions where I like to say you got to go with what you know. What you know right now is you won't be able to keep doing the things you're doing if you don't pass this one. The question is, can we plus up enough to get real budgeting done in the next 6 to 8 months? And if they can't, they don't deserve the job.
Well, hopefully Doge can get us to the point where we can in September. So I think that would be Trump's argument to Massey of let us keep doing it, and then by September we can actually do a clean budget.
Yeah. And I will say, I'll end this before we go to the break. President Trump endorses the Republican CR as the next step in the Doge battle. So yeah, it's literally it's reallocating funds into defense and immigration reform, or not reform, but immigration controls, and keeping Doge moving. And President Trump is saying that's what he needs to keep his agenda moving right now, but he also wants a budget come into the year. So let's see. Jack from Huntsville says, as conservatives, we all hate CRs, but sometimes you got to take the tactical retreat to strategically win the war. Yeah, you know what, though? I'm not even going to call it a tactical retreat, though, Jack, and I agree with you. I'm just going to go ahead and say sometimes you got to be able to pivot on the battlefield and recognize what the better target is. And then Thomas from Athens says, Representative Massey is standing on his principles, but he's strategically making a mistake by tactically giving the Dems a win, since either the CR gets stonewalled by a bipartisan vote, thereby consuming the news cycles with that government shutdown theme, or the CR is passed with whatever Dem pork has to be added to dirty it up, the clean CR to get Dems voted, which flies in the face of Massey's strategically cut spending passion. So, yeah, the bottom line is pass what you got, get her done today, work towards the regular order of business budgeting by the next 6 to 8 months, pass a real budget next year, and take the win. In the meantime, keep Doge moving, keep the deportations happening, and please, plus up the military and get it straightened out. All that to say, I just got a text from somebody. They just said the CR just passed in the House. I had not seen that. Let me refresh my news. It may very well be. If it just passed, all right, we will check on that. But yes, if it just passed, then thank you. By the way, tell us who you are, where you're from. We can't even quote your name. But all right, we'll take a break right now. We'll check on that. We'll come right back and give you an update. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We will be right back. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Solid conservative, just plain right. Making common sense like a superpower. All right, it appears the House has indeed passed the spending bill just in the last few minutes. So while we were telling you all about it, they began voting. And I'm looking at, it depends on which ticker I'm looking at. I can't tell which one's real. But I could have sworn a moment ago I saw that they had been joined by a bunch of Democrats, but I could be wrong. But either way, it does appear that the House has passed the spending bill according to the CNN screen here in the Right Side studio. All right, so that's done. That's out of the way. Timely that we prepared that one for a storyline for a dipper today. But yes, the CR is done. Now, please, let's move towards a real budget at the end of this fiscal year. Got to do it. Real quick on the grades, and then I'll go to the phone. John from Huntsville says Jeff from Indiana gets an A+ for his awesome phone call. Means today's co-winners with an A++ are Phil and JP with equally amazing performances. You forgot Mac Butler. That's okay. Thank you, brother. Appreciate you, John. Let me go to the phones real quick. Allie from Athens says her call is off topic. Okay, what you got, Allie?
Well, this is not going to dent the universe, but I wanted to talk to you for a moment about the postman and give you a little bit of little-known trivia.
Okay, we got about 2 minutes.
Scene, well, I can do it. The scene where they are being forced to watch The Sound of Music, the game version of The Sound of Music every night. Okay, that backdrop, that water and that big cement wall is Boundary Dam. And my father was the Navy PERT engineer on that project. So when I was a kid, I just used to refer to that dam as my dad's dam.
That's cool. What state is that
in? Washington.
Washington.
The Boundary Dam is in Medellin Falls. It's up near Spokane, Colville, around there. And the other thing is that the kids who were part of the postman crew, they were all homeschoolers and 4-H'ers. And so they were able to school and ride horses and film the movie. So they used all local kids when they filmed The Postman. So that's not going to change anything, but I thought you might find it interesting.
I think that's a cool movie, too. And I love the fact that Tom Petty was in it.
Yeah.
wasn't that a hoot? You remember that Tom Petty had his brief foray into the movie?
Tom Petty scene is one of my favorites. So, I just thought that you might like that little bit of backstory, sir.
Good enough. Thank you, my friend. Appreciate you, Allie.
You're welcome, sir. Okay, bye.
Oh man, but I love movies, and there's always a good story you can bring out of it. Hey, by the way, that clip we played earlier, Representative Keith Self refusing to call Representative quote unquote Sarah McBride Mrs. when she's really a Mr. is going viral right now. It's all over social media.
Rightfully so.
Rightfully so. All right, listen, tomorrow's going to be a great day. We're going to have the Grand Council at 4 o'clock and no telling whatever else we'll have mixed in. Sometimes we find out the morning of, but a lot of times we plan the show. And we got a lot of things happening around here at Rightside Media, the parent company of Rightside Radio. My latest podcast comes out tomorrow. You can catch it. It's a sort of a much broader discussion with examples of why it feels like we are seeing the demise of the Democrat Party. Taking nothing for granted, mind you, but recognizing that the Democrat Party appears to be in its death throes. Well, that whole podcast comes out tomorrow. It's called The Right Philosophy. It's on rightsidemedia.org and our YouTube channel with all our stuff. We got tons of stuff for you. Content out the wazoo, man. Content out the wazoo. So you like conservative content like I know all you ruffians do? Check it out, rightsidemedia.org. In the meantime, hey, y'all, there are more of us than there are of them. God is still very much on his throne. Y'all stay in the fight.